Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, for the record, if I can make a clarification, I'm willing to reduce that buffer zone to 600 feet as per state mandate. I included banks, and earlier I said churches. I want to use the politically correct term. Churches is to include synagogues, temples, Jewish hababs, and subsequently, the correct political term should be faith-based organizations.
Or houses of worship, or whatever.
Thank you very much for the clarification. We're ready to move on to the next item.
Mayor and Council, I think we've had a very robust discussion on, the limits and given staff good direction along with your consultant to come back with some alternatives there. I think at this point, I'm going to make some recommendations as we move into the next categories. And if you want further discussion and debate, by all means. The next question is, should there be additional limitations such as on volatile manufacturing? I'd recommend that you limit it to non-volatile manufacturing initially. And then if the industry wants to appeal to have that changed, review it carefully with your fire department and public safety departments. Okay, the next major category we have here is on the licensing structures. And I think both your consultant and your staff would recommend that you pursue the combination licensing strategy where you require a cannabis business license as well as a conditional use permit for this land use. And we can return at a later time with a whole set of recommendations for what to include in that application process and the merit-based selection process.
I would like to note that one of the things in the application process is I would like to include I don't know what we call it, I want locals to be able to be part of this. Local residents to be able to. I want it to be an extra added layer of criteria to determine suitability.
So residential preference.
So it would be under the merit-based system, it would be like you give veterans, you give them a special bump or something.
Minority.
Like local preference.
Local
preference.
Or DBE type language or stuff like that.
And we've seen many communities incorporate that as one of the scoring criteria and assign a point value to that.
Right.
And allow points both for resident status and a business owner, a resident business owner, not necessarily a resident.
Right.
But
So
someone
both.
who is
Someone
a
that's a
business
resident
owner in the
and a
community.
small
Someone who's
business
been a
owner has
business
already
person
been.
here.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there should be, I think there should be some sort of parameter. I mean, they can't just be a business that popped in 6 months,
Yes,
That's
and we've seen those longevity
Yes, exactly.
provisions incorporated, where if you're, a year or less, you get a smaller point value. If you're 2 to 5, you get a bigger one, over 5, et cetera.
Along those lines, I'd like to, I guess what we're developing is some sort of rubric as to what good looks like. So let's include in there MBE and
A what?
Minority-owned business.
I didn't hear.
MBE.
Ah, yes.
and
I just didn't hear him.
equity. You have the haves and the have-nots. And, it's just like applying for a scholarship, and if you really need it, I think we ought to give some sort of preference points for that as well. Somebody who don't really have all the money or the financial backing, but just to consider it, at least. It offers a mechanism to get started and try.
Totally agree with that.
Okay. All right. Next one is that's just a continuation of the same discussion. Next one is questions about cost recovery and tax decisions. So the first question is, should we design the application fee to recover full costs?
Yes. Yes. Well, I feel like
Well,
I don't think we should subsidize the application process, but, I mean, what are we talking about? What are we talking?
How much money are
What would it cost?
roughly?
So we would do a study to determine the amount of staff time, equipment and resources, any outside consulting resources that are needed to process the applications and administer the permit process. And then we would divide that by the number of permits or applicants that we anticipated participating in the process, and that would determine the fee level.
yeah. Well, I said yes right away because it doesn't make any sense
I
around
say
us
yes.
being
Well-
able to, use our resources and then deplete, That's why I was like, okay, it was one of those like, let's do it. But Councilmember Sylvester.
I'm a yes, but at the same time, I respect our city manager, Ms. Martell, because she was really shaking her head earlier. And I think, ma'am, you are the expert, and you know as to how we would go about this. And I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
So, thank you very much for that. I think it's very important that the implementation and administration of this new business program does not detract from general tax-paid services that are provided by staff. And in fact, at the community outreach meetings, when I did the overview of why we were doing these meetings, I made it very clear that the council had previously, which you did, indicate to me that we didn't want general fund dollars being directed towards this kind of activity, that any costs associated with implementing and the ongoing administration of this program would be borne by those who are operating these businesses. And I think that that is a reasonable approach, because these businesses will not necessarily be providing a benefit to every single resident directly. In other words, they won't all be buying this, and so they won't be getting a direct benefit. But the revenue that we get from that to pay for the services that support it should not be detracting from the revenue being provided across the board in an equitable way to everyone in the community. So municipal services. And that's why I believe it's important that we get full cost recovery.
Thank you, Ms. Martell.
Do you have any idea from other cities what that cost recovery looks like? I mean, I'm assuming it's several $1,000s. I mean, is it $10,000 or is it
It ranges
1,000?
from the several $1,000 range up to one Bay Area city that charges $100,000.
Which Bay Area city is that?
San Jose.
Yikes.
And they have lots of takers.
Now, Pacifica charged $5,000 and they did a lottery. So you could just keep going like.
Yeah, yeah.
$5,000.
Sounds good. I think
So,
we're on the same
Yes.
page. Yeah, I think we're all on the same page for
Yeah, good.
cost
So
recovery.
we will come back with some recommendations based on full cost recovery. At that time, you can see the actual dollar numbers, and if you feel that is unreasonable or impractical, we can always adjust it based on a lower percentage of cost recovery.
Can you explain the equity adjustment aspect?
I think so. So in many communities, there's a concern about minority and disadvantaged individuals being able to access the permitting and approval process because of the costs involved. And in some cases, communities have a history of disproportionate enforcement for drug offenses on certain segments of the community. And they've tried to design either point preferences to allow for that, to give better access. And in some cases, I think this is more unusual, they've actually set aside city money, general fund money, to loan out at low or no interest to help establish those businesses.
What
I mean, I
city?
could see something like waiving a percentage of the application process money, and then they pay it back over the first 5 years of business or something.
What
But I don't
cities
see
and counties?
anything where we lose money.
Oakland is the most visible with that
Okay.
program currently.
Oakland.
I think the main thing that you want to be concerned about is that the city is not in any way subsidizing
Yeah, we
this
don't
new
wanna do
business or this new industry. That should not be something the city is doing.
No, but I would, at the same time, I would like to address, if there is an opportunity to address equity adjustment, that it would be an aspect of your work.
Yeah, and it may not be subsidizing through the general fund, but finding, are there alternate ways they've had equity adjustments?
So we'll do some further research on that and provide some alternatives too. Okay. Okay, the next questions relate to tax structure. And the
Yes.
first one is, do you want an excise tax on the cannabis industry?
Yes.
Yes, it's not, we're not gonna get much of it, but
So I think that's unanimous.
Yes.
Okay. And do you want that to apply to both medical and adult use?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, but we didn't say how much, right? We're
we
getting
haven't
there, right?
gotten there
Right.
yet.
Okay.
Yeah, no one said how.
What we're recommending is that you, we work with your city attorney to draft a voter measure that would authorize up to a maximum of a 10% tax.
So
And
it's a
then we
not to
would-
exceed kind of
Right.
thing, yeah.
Okay.
And then we would return to you, the city council, with recommendations
For where to
about
start.
initial rates and breakouts of rates by business type. You could say, no, we want a 5% tax to apply to everyone, or a 1% tax to apply to everyone, or you could say, we're only gonna tax dispensaries. Those are all options that you would have.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Thinking ahead, I was thinking 4 and 9. Okay.
Pardon me?
I was thinking 4 and 9, so just give something city attorney to
Well, we
think
see the
about.
range is like 2.5 and
2 and a
5
half,
and
2 and a half to
10.
5, and 5 to 10, right?
Like they're doubling up the
Right.
medicinal gets doubled up by the recreation.
So are you
And
gonna
we'll
give
no,
us
get
it's
a?
information
lower.
on the San Francisco business
Okay.
rates when
Yes.
we return on those, so that
This
you'll
is
have that
bordering.
as a reference.
If you want it, you pay for it.
Okay, the next
Or grow your own.
important question is, would that be a gross receipts tax or a square footage tax? We would recommend a gross receipts tax.
I would like,
Yes.
Yes, I think that's,
more accurate.
we haven't aligned, so.
Okay?
Already reviewed that? Okay, now the dates. So, the next time we will see you will be, I believe, July 9th. And at that time, we would have a more definitive set of recommendations on the taxes and the breakouts by industry. And we'd work.
Can I interject a
Yes,
little bit?
please,
Because
please.
I see the direction for us to get on the tax ballot, and we have some pretty aggressive timelines with respect to that. And that's not to say we can continue to develop our ordinance, is that my line of priority would be to get the language and the percentage for the tax ballot, because I have a timeline to get this to the county by the
What's the
first
date?
week of August, which means I need to have everything done and
Do you need
approved.
the numbers though, now?
I need the numbers by July 23rd at the latest.
Yeah. Everything has to be done.
But it's
by
more than just the numbers, actually. I do need the ballot language.
July 23rd.
Yes, that's because that is the only
Okay.
meeting we would have before I would have to submit everything to the county by the
Yeah.
first week of August. So I
Is
I
the
would
next
suggest we work on that as well. We can work with the ordinance concurrently because we can continue to develop after we get this on the
To
ballot.
develop
The ordinance
ordinance.
doesn't have that same type.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, no, it can happen
Timeline and
anytime,
deadline.
yeah. But the decision about how much you're going to tax each thing has to be for the ballot
It goes to
measure.
the ballot
Yes.
in November, yes, and we need to.
No later than the July 23rd.
So
Yeah, so
you're
we have to be
saying on the
completely-
9th, we should have.
On the
everything
9th, I should
updated.
have some draft language for us
Okay.
to look at in case there are any changes. I have one more
Sure.
date.
Because we'll decide then, and then you'll just be
And
able to implement it
We've seen
within your
two
ordinance.
models. One model is a voter measure that authorizes a maximum tax rate, and then describes a process whereby the council would then later establish initial tax rates. That's one model. The second is where the voter measure authorizes, again, the maximum tax rate, and then describes what those initial tax rates will be, and makes clear that the council can amend those.
By ordinance, then.
So those are the two.
So we'll need to do some
Yeah.
research on those two things.
Yeah,
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Which one is Pacifica's?
Don't know.
60.
I think it was maximum, and then they started at
Most of them have been
6.
maximum tax rates.
Okay,
Yeah.
6 to 10.
Yeah.
well, if you, yeah, you provide that information for
Started
us.
Voters once for the maximum tax rate, and then you let them know what your initial tax rate will be based on what.
Okay.
So I think, believe it or not, we've made it through all those questions.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Not midnight yet. Thumbs up.
Thank you. You've given us great direction tonight. It's been very helpful. And we'll probably be seeing a lot of each other in the coming months.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We are now moving on to item number 14. It's consideration to place a measure relating to the transient occupancy tax on the November 6, 2018 general election.
Who's doing this? Oh,
Where'd you go?
Mr. Chu,
yeah.
Ms. Martell, that's what I have on here.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's both of us. I don't want to start without him.
Okay.
I might go too fast. TOT.
I lost one.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Today, the City Manager and I are presenting the proposed ballot measure to increase the TOT. Daly City TOT rate of 10% was established in 1989 under the California Revenue and Taxation Code and is codified as Chapter 3.32 of the Daly City Municipal Code. TOT is paid for by the hotel guests and remitted to the Daly City on a quarterly basis. The TOT is collected to offset operating costs such as street maintenance, traffic control, public safety, and pass used by the tourists. Under the California state law, TOT can only be increased through voter approval. So the threshold for the voter approval depending on whether the TOT is a general test or a special test. So for a general test, it's a simple majority. For a special test, it will be a supermajority. Daly City has maintained the current TOT rate of 10% for almost 30 years, since 1989. Below is the historical TOT rate of Daly City, 6% starting in 1977, 8% in 1983, and the current rate of 10% is effective since January 1989. Daly City has 7 hotels which generate $1 million in TOT revenue annually. The table below provides an overview of the daily room rate and the number of rooms of the 7 hotels in Daly City. The map shows the location of the 7 hotels in Daly City. One is close to Civic Center, one at Mission Street, and their 5 hotels are located in the Bayshore area between Geneva Avenue and Bayshore Boulevard. This table compares the TOT rate for cities in San Mateo County. As you can see, there are 6 cities in San Mateo County with the 10% TOT rate, and 9 cities with 12% TOT rate. And Daly City TOT rate of 10% is below the San Mateo County average of 12%. Now we look at the TOT rate in the Bay Area counties. City and County of San Francisco is the highest TOT rate at 14%. San Mateo County is the second highest at 12%. Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin County, and Santa Clara County, the average is 10%. Staff has prepared 2 options for council consideration. Option A is to increase the TOT from 10 to 12%. Option B is to increase TOT from 10 to 12% in fiscal year 2019, and then from 12% to 13% in fiscal year 2021. Option 8 would increase the TOT from 10 to 12% and bring TOT rate in the average of San Mateo County. Now we look at the table below. With the current TOT rate of 10%, the current hotel, the existing hotel, generate around $1.1 million in TOT revenue. Option A will increase the TOT to 12%. The existing hotel will generate $1.2 million of TOT revenue, or an increase of $200,000 in annual revenue. With the current TOT rate, the proposed hotel will generate $1.2 million in TOT revenue. Under Option 8, the TOT rate will increase to 12%, and the proposed hotel will generate around $1.5 million of TOT revenue, an increase of $256,000 in TOT revenue annually.
And this is the hotel that's next to the BART station?
Yes. And the projection is based on a 200-room hotel. Now we look at Option B is to increase TOT to 12% in fiscal year 2019 and 13% to 2021. This option will bring the TOT in line with the average of San Mateo County and capture domestic tourism growth with the development of a new hotel near the bus station and the golf course. So the projected revenue for fiscal year 2019 and 20 is the same as Option A that I shown above. So beginning in fiscal year 2021, the TOT rate will increase to 13%. The existing hotel will generate additional TOT revenue of around $306,000 annually. And the proposed new hotel will generate additional TOT revenue of around $383,000 annually. Now we look at the fiscal impact. The estimated cost to place a ballot measure on the November 2018 general election is projected at around $150,000. Funding for the ballot measure will be from the general fund reserve. If the council chooses to place a TOT ballot measure on the November election, this chart summarizes the key dates. Council will adopt a resolution calling for a TOT measure election by July the 23rd. The city will file a TOT measure and the tax rate statement with the county by August the 9th. Argument in favor and against the TOT is due on August the 14th. City attorney impartial analysis is due on August the 20th. Rebuttal to argument in favor and against the impartial analysis is due on August the 20th. So staff recommend the council authorize the placement of TOT measure on the November 6, 2008 ballot to increase the TOT from 10 to 12% in fiscal year 2019, and then from 12 to 13% in fiscal year 2021. This is the option B that staff recommend.
And again, what is the percentage of vote to pass that?
It all depends on our consultant will talk a little bit because there was like a statewide initiative going on that may impact. Right now, if it is a general test, this will be a simple majority, 50%.
Okay.
We're going to let Russ describe for us what the impact could be of the state.
Right. So the one of the odd things on the possibly on the November ballot is a proposition that would require any general tax to be a 2/3 vote in the state of California for local tax measures. Mm-hmm. So they have signatures. They've turned those signatures in to see if they qualify for the ballot measure.
But our thing would be on the same ballot.
Yes, and it's retroactive.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah, right. I agree with you. I don't know how that's legal. My guess is it will probably be challenged if it passes.
It will go to the courts. You can guarantee that.
But it would be retroactive for 2018. Any tax measure passed in 2018. If it passes, then it would require a 2/3 vote.
On the same ballot.
So it just muddies it muddies the thoughts. What might happen. So if you get a 2/3 vote, you're fine.
Yeah, 2/3 is hard to get on anything.
Is very hard to get. Right. There's
55% easy. 50 super easy.
Yeah. So.
Huh. Who put that forward?
Was it Howard? I don't know if it was the Howard Jarvis. It was Howard Jarvis people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will turn over to Russ to present the PFM.
So yeah, part of what we're asked to do as part of this is just to take a review of the staff's calculations, just to have that third-party view of were these correct. And so on the TOT. We did our analysis, so we came up with the same numbers. So, and looking at that, and what I looked for is the existing hotel rooms. I actually backed into an average room rate of 150 and 70% occupancy, and looked at that across. So I think the estimates are reasonable that staff has put forward in terms of, I think, revenue expectations for the city on the TOT.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't believe they even let them do a retroactive thing like that.
So just as a postscript to this, Lawrence and I discussed the potential increase rates. San Francisco, as we noted in the staff report that we provided for you, has had a 14% rate for some time. And we weighed going to 14%. I was a little concerned that we might be pricing ourselves too high compared to San Francisco hotel rooms. Although since then, I did send Lawrence an article that I read in the Daily Journal that the city of South San Francisco, as of last Friday, it was written up in the paper, has taken action to increase their transient occupancy tax, similar to what we're doing, from 10% to 12% next year, and then an additional 1% in each of the 2 following years, so that by 2021, when we would be at 13%, they would actually be to 14% if their measure passes. So I'm just passing that along to you. I'm not suggesting that we necessarily want to change it, but I was concerned that we would be the highest in San Mateo County. And it now looks like we wouldn't be.
What jurisdiction? What jurisdiction?
South San Francisco, which has quite a few hotels.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to.
They have quite a few
yeah.
hotels, so they stand to
Yeah.
make a lot of revenue with an
Exactly.
increase over the next 4 years to 14%.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I do. Is there
Vice
an
Mayor.
argument about a TOT tax on Airbnbs?
You answered, you.
So essentially, no, there is not. So what we would be considering at some point is if the council were to allow Airbnb, which would come before the council again, we would define it as a hotel. So it would just fall within a category of a hotel. So we wouldn't have to worry about that with the ballot measure.
yeah.
And that's happened with many jurisdictions right now that allow for it. Our ordinance would define Airbnb like it's defined as a hotel.
Any short-term rentals.
Any short-term?
So it's like
Thank
less
you
than
for that
30 days?
question, Vice Mayor.
However we
Yes.
define it, we would
Yeah.
just define it as hotel.
So you would, the next step would be to create another ordinance after the ballot measure.
That's correct.
Hopefully
And we
it
would just,
passes
we would just
to define
And
it,
that's been the
including.
plan all along. The staff is doing a lot more research, and they're going to come back to you at a future date with more details on short-term rentals and Airbnb, so.
Yeah.
And essentially, what is going to the voters is we already have a TOT ordinance in place, so there wouldn't be anything to amend in that ordinance. We would just amend the tax rate. That's all.
Okay, well, that's important. I think we have a lot of vacation rentals in Daly City. Some of them are popping up, and it's important to capture that, most especially since a lot of that traffic goes in and out on our streets, and, there's definitely impact, so.
And that'll be coming to the council so we can develop the ordinance to allow or not allow
Okay.
Airbnb
Soon,
Thank
right?
you.
soon.
Yeah. We don't need to
Councilmember
wait for the
Sylvester.
No,
Ballot.
no,
Yeah.
we should proceed with the ballot.
Well, we could start collecting it right away, couldn't we, at the 10%?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have, not basically a question, but a comment. Vice Mayor did bring up one of my questions, which was answered. The other issue, I'm more in favor of option number A. Ms. Martell was kind of, is definitely correct. I don't want to price ourselves out of the market, because the reason why San Francisco is at 14%, because people will go to San Francisco. And some of the other neighboring jurisdictions who are at 12% now, folks will go to those jurisdictions. But Daly City is not really a destination. But we do have amenities to which that will change in the future to include easy access to BART. So if somebody comes into San Francisco, they would say, hey, it's cheaper out in Daly City, so let's stay out in Daly City. But I'm very, very concerned that if we raise it too quickly, we will price ourselves out and maybe folks won't come to Daly City. So we have to be in that mix. Lastly, the other issue I have, based upon the staff report, it's going to cost us $150,000 to put this on the ballot. And that is a lot of money. However, I would like to see the ballot language. Mr. Lawrence also included, there's a rebuttal aspects to it, and I'm sure there will be some, but we need full and complete voter transparency. And that is that the voters in Daly City know, number one, we are in a structural deficit at this time. Number two, they will need to know it's not going to cost them anything. It's the tourists who are going to pay for these taxes. And the voters need to know that. So subsequent, not unless you're a Daly City resident and you choose to stay in a hotel when you could be at home or at your own residence, that's entirely up to you. But I think the voters need to know that it's really no cost to them here in Daly City.
So all of that information will be presented in a ballot argument.
Gotcha.
And anyone who opposes can file an argument or rebuttal.
Gotcha.
And the timeline essentially is the same as what we were talking about with respect to the election for the cannabis issue. So in July, staff will have to come back with the proposed ballot language
Yes.
that will outline specifically what the voters will be asked to do, the explanation of the ballot measure, and the argument in favor of the ballot measure. So you'll have an opportunity to review all of that proposed language, tweak it whatever way you want before it gets finalized and sent to the county by July 23rd, or by August, first week of August, to in order to put it on the ballot.
Thank you
As
very
I
much.
recall, reviewing TOT ballot measures for other cities over the last probably 10 years, deciding whether to endorse them or not, that when you read the arguments against, there were very few. They were by out-of-town tax, the Silicon Valley tax,
yeah.
whoever they are. Actually, yeah, I used to know one of their directors, nice guy, totally wrong on taxes. But local people don't seem to, at least historically, oppose this.
Okay,
So
good to know.
That's
I'm an
good
option
to-
B person,
Well,
but I could be,
19.
I'll be happy either way.
Are there any other comments? I think for me, I feel comfortable moving with option B because of the fact that we are close to San Francisco and we're close to a BART station, and having that new hotel right adjacent to a BART when there's probably overflow, in other areas, and we anticipate other hotels coming down the line. It's better to have one measure, including an increase 1 year and then the following, than having to go back to the voters. And we talked about our long-term financial plan, and I think this is a moment for us to seize. And I don't think, looking at where we are located, we're going to see 2 more years of the golf tournament further down the line. They have a contract. Further down the line, the Olympic golf course is going to have, in about, I would say, 10 years or so, they're going to have a national tournament as well. These are all very close, and if you think about what the closest hotel is, it's going to be our hotels to the Olympic golf course. And so I think, that's where I'm at. I feel that the direction is now, and if we were to go back and if we look at the history of the timing of when we went back to increase it, we want to be close to what the market is. And with the new information Ms. Martell gave us about it adjacent, although they have more, I think we're looking at having more hotels as well further down the line, whether it's the one right by the McDonald's or internally with Ceremony, and maybe more opportunities by Cow Palace, seeing that there's a whole row there, but maybe down the line there'll be a hotel developer that wants to build a larger hotel. Who knows, right? So I think for me, I feel comfortable with moving with B.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think option B is a good one. I'm supportive of the staff's recommendation.
I'm okay with option B.
So do I have a motion, entertain a motion to do so? Oh, wait, actually, one moment. Before we move forward, I do have a public comment card on this. Item number 14. Ms. Pamela DiGiovanni.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I just want to say it's actually a positive night because it looks like we're looking for avenues for revenue and things are changing in our city. And seeing option B is the way to go because, as the mayor alluded to, that we don't have to go back to the voters, and it's a chance that we can capture that money and move in a positive direction and increase our revenue, which will help our services that it's long overdue. And so I feel that the voters, because they know, and we started putting the word out, there might be a possibility already, that I've never heard any feedback of negativity at all. So option B would be great. And by the time we get to the 13, then probably San Mateo County will be moving in that direction as well. I'm sure San Bruno and everyone else will be starting to capture and increase in their TOT as well. So thank you for doing that, and thanks for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this point, I have a motion, entertain a motion to.
So moved.
I don't think we
Oh,
need
we
a
don't do?
motion.
Oh, we don't? Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item. Item 15, another ballot measure. Considering to place a measure relating to business license tax on the November 6, 2018 general election.
This is a whole other game.
Oh, more paper.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Today I'm presenting the proposed ballot measure to increase the business license tax. Daly City business license tax is imposed on all business operating in Daly City and is codified as Chapter 5 of the Daly City Municipal Code. The BLT is collected to offset operating costs such as street maintenance, traffic control, and public safety that support business as well as local residents. Under California state law, TOT can only increase through voter approval. The threshold for voter approval depending on whether the tax is a general tax or a special tax. This slide shows the current BLT rate of Daly City since 2005. The BLT rate for business and commercial rental property is 0.1% of gross received with a minimum of $100. The BLT rate for residential rental property is 0.5% of gross received and with a minimum of $100. For those businesses not operating based on gross received, is the greater of $25 per employee or 2 cents per square footage of usable square foot occupied, but not less than $100. Peddlers with a regular route and truck is $125 per year, and each peddler and solicitor is $25 per year. For more information on the historical BLT rate, please refer to attachment 1 of the staff report.
I have a little question. What is a business that does not generate gross receipts?
We do
Kind
have
of
like
business would
a several, but I don't have like example in front of you, but I can send the information later.
Okay.
Daly City has 8,000 business licenses, which are divided into 3 major categories: business, commercial rental, and residential rental. The BLT generate around $4.6 million in general fund revenue in fiscal year 2018. The table below shows the number of business licenses under each category and the projected revenue under each category. Daly City has maintained the current BLT rate for over 13 years. When you look at the San Francisco Bay Area Consumer Price Index, has increased by a cumulative of 32% since 2005. Below is a list of business license revenue per capita for some city in San Mateo County. Again, it's not all the city in San Mateo County, they use the gross receipt to calculate the BLT. Sometimes they do have like a fixed rate, sometimes they have like a different rate for different business. So it becomes like extremely difficult to compare the business license rate. The only way that we can compare is to looking at the business license revenue per capita. So when you look at the table, the top 5 are those calculated based on a percentage of gross received.
So I'm a little confused by this chart. So when you're saying per capita, it's per business.
Is the per resident by population.
Well, then what the heck would that have to do with anything? Then it tells you it's really more about how many businesses there are and what kind of money, what kind of businesses they are than it is about anything else, right? When
I think
you're
it depends on
comparing-
some business, they generate a lot of revenue. But those city like San Francisco is a very good example, as they don't charge much on the business license.
Right.
They pretty much is only a flat fee, but what they get is the sales tax.
Yes.
So they get more sales tax in some of the business revenue. So when you look at San Francisco, it's only around $21.76 per capita, versus Daly City, we charge based on the gross receipt. So that's why we receive a higher revenue on the business license than San Francisco.
And so many of our businesses are
Small
tiny,
business.
tiny, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Staff has prepared three options for council consideration. Option A is to increase BLT by 5%. Option B, increase by 10%. And option C, increase BLT by 15%. Now we look at option 8, it should increase the business license tax by 5%. Under option 8, it will generate additional BLT revenue of around $190,000 annually. And when you look at the table below, the current BLT generate 4.6 million. We increase that by 5%, it will generate 4.8 million. So this represents an increase of $190,000. So the commercial and rental tax rate would change from 0.1% to 0.105%, and the residential rental will change from 0.5% to 0.5 to 5%. In both cases, the minimum BLT would change from $100 to $105. Now we look at option B. Option B will increase the BLT by 10%. Option B will generate additional revenue of around $420,000 annually. So the commercial business and commercial rental tax rate will change from 0.1% to 0.11%, and the residential will change from 0.5% to 0.55%. Minimum tax will change from $100 to $110. Option C is to increase the BLT by 15% and generate additional revenue of $650,000. The minimum BLT will change from $100 to $115. The estimated cost to place a ballot is around $150,000. It will be coming from the general fund reserve. And I've already presented the ballot measure timeline. I don't want to repeat here again. So staff recommend the council authorize the placement of BLT measure on the November 6, 2018 ballot. Increase the BLT by 10%. Option B as needs to be noted. So under option B, it will generate additional revenue of around $420,000 annually. And the table here reflects the new BLT rate. Have any question?
What,
Vice Mayor.
why are you not recommending option C?
Primarily because it's a big jump from where we are, and wanting to recognize that the economic recovery has been slow in Daly City, and not to put an unreasonable burden on the business community, but some kind of an increase we think is appropriate. Certainly 15% would not be unreasonable, but it would be a stretch, I think, for our local businesses here in Daly City.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I have some.
Councilmember Sylvester.
Slide number 2, where we're talking about increasing the taxes business due to street maintenance. I think our voters are more astute because they already know, as per Senate Bill 1, that Daly City is getting extra money due to extra taxes that they pay for gas. So just wanted to bring that point out.
So the intent of that statement, Councilmember, was merely to say that the business license tax that we collect is used to offset the cost of municipal services that not only support residents, but support the business community as well. And so they're helping to pay their fair share, since many business owners and large businesses don't necessarily reside here and they're not paying property taxes and other taxes. The business license tax is a means for them to pay their fair share of municipal services for which they are receiving benefit.
I like that, especially street cleaning.
Right.
Somebody's got to pay, and,
Right.
and we pay.
Exactly.
I like that. Slide number 4, where you're talking about trucks and peddlers with a regular route. Does this apply to the food trucks off the grid?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, I'm in favor of option B for the exact reasons that Ms. Martell mentioned about. It's a way to get something back, but at the same time not to cause undue hardship in trying to go up to such a large amount.
Councilmember Christensen.
Yes. Many of our businesses are very, very small, and they make no profit at all. They are family businesses who employ their family members, and at the end of the day, they've paid the wages to their family members, they've bought the goods that they're going to sell, they've paid the rent, and they have nothing left over. Many of these businesses are owned by recent immigrants. When you're taxed on your gross, as opposed to being taxed on your net profit, it's a whole different game. I know that we've always taxed on the gross, but when you think about these particular small businesses, they got nothing to pay the tax with. And when you look at other larger businesses, such as, well, let's think of an auto repair place or something. The business that they're actually in is installing parts in cars, but yet they buy parts from a company which are very expensive. They resell those parts to their clients, and sure enough, they pay taxes on that pass-through of parts. So I'm concerned that we're taxing on the wrong thing. I would be able to support the 5% increase, and even that's pushing it for me. But the other two, I think it's just too much of a stretch, especially for our very small businesses.
Thank you, Councilmember Christensen. Any other comments?
Madam Mayor, thank you so much. I believe Councilmember Christensen brings up a good point, and I was looking at slide 14 where we're talking about commercial business and rental, and we're talking about annual gross receipts to exceed over $100,000 a year at 0.11%. However, they will only pay $110 if they are under. I wonder if we can come up with a category for, say under 50,000 and provide a minimum there. And if they exceed over 50,000, then they would have to pay the extra. That's the way to address some of the smaller businesses. Here, we're looking at a minimum of up to 100,000. So if one business only makes 20,000 in 1 year, they're still paying 110. If they make 100 or 99,999, they pay 110. Is there some sort of equity adjustment we can make for those folks who are under?
That's not how it works, though, is it?
Yeah, that's what, up to $100,000 in gross annual receipts, you pay $110.
That's the
Commercial business
Commercial business and rental.
and
Right.
rental.
That's the
Yeah.
minimum.
so they pay and one of them is,
The more you
Yeah.
pay.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that you pay.
It's going to be $110.
110,
So to
yeah.
accommodate some of the lower businesses who don't even come close to 100,000, say they're only at 50,000, can we create a category for them?
Well, we'll change our numbers.
Well, I was just addressing what Madam Christensen brought out because I'm
Yeah.
concerned about the small businesses who don't even come close.
Can we get analysis on, like, how many small businesses we have on
Good question.
that? Like, how many are like $50,000 and under?
I'm looking at the commercial. Let's go back to the slide here. The
I'm thinking of the little bridal store, that has 6 dresses in it for sale on Mission Street, or the
So let's take a look at the
paper.
first category is the commercial business. We have around 4,800 business license, and of which 75% or 3,600 is the gross receipt is under $100,000.
Okay.
So for the commercial rental here,
Yeah.
we have around 200 license, and 68 or 32% the gross receipt is under 100,000.
Okay.
Then look at the last category, residential rental. We have around 3,000 license. Out of that, 93% or 2,800 business license with the gross receipt of under $100,000.
Okay, so I mean, I definitely hear the concern and echo, but I also look at the statistics where it says, and I support small businesses. I think they are extremely the backbone of our communities. But if we look at what we've been given around the Bay Area Consumer Price Index, and it was like 13 years, for the last 13 years, I think that looking at it, the suggestion that staff had given is raising it, because from $100 to $110 a year. It's right.
It's really,
for
the increase is very modest.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons we included the information that we did about the CPI is to demonstrate to you that the cost of us operating based on CPI, our costs go up every single year, but our revenue to provide services has not increased at the same rate. It's far below what the CPI increases have been and how that impacts us in the delivery of services. So I'm of the mind, and I think the finance director is as well, that what we're proposing is a very modest increase in revenue that will help to offset the cost of the rise in our expenses via the CPI.
Madam Mayor and the rest of my colleagues, I withdraw my my request to create another category of under the 100,000. Mr. Liu, thank you so much for reverse engineering those numbers to come up with the answer that I had wanted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I think if you're saying option B, I think I'm with you on option B.
Okay,
That's all.
I'm with option B as well. Yeah. I think that's the happy medium. It's not, we're not going to.
I'm option A, but I'm outvoted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on to public appearances and oral communications. We will get out of here before we turn into pumpkins, everyone. So we have Mr. Joel Nino. Please.
Good evening to the people of Daly City in San Mateo County, California. And Ms. Martel, it was an honor and my privilege to meet you in one of those Daly City Academy annually. And I recommend those. It's very great. And good evening to the mayor, vice mayor, to the council. I, Joe Nino, as of June 17, 1980, marked my 8 years of migration, including my 16 years of immigration. I have about 24 years of stay here in the United States of America. It took a while for me to come to a decision to become a naturalized citizen because I don't want to be part of any type of government. However, for my freedom of choice, if I could claim independence from a new country, especially here in the United States, without marrying a woman, then so also could a woman claim her independence without marrying a man. Because I believe marriage and immigration are totally different cases or story. I'd rather have someone grant their immigration before marriage if they want to find out how the United States of America operates. I also recommend they should read the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. And that's all I have. If anyone have questions.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
We have Ms. Pamela DiGiovanni.
Good evening again. In the interest of time, I just want to say today was a sad day for firefighters in Long Beach. A firefighter was actually shot and killed. Yep. They're not usually, as I spoke to the chief, they're not used to going into being active shooters, but there were 2 injured. And so if we could close in the memory of firefighter Captain David Rosa tonight from Long Beach, it'd be greatly appreciated. And just to remember that that enhances the safety and the risk for our firefighters and our fellow police officers that we need to continue to support. And while we're increasing all these revenues and they're out there trying to protect us, and we need to continue to support that and get back our city in good shape for that. And Councilmember Sylvester, the last time that you, the council meeting, I got several inquiries to you, and a big thank you for bringing up, there's some, one that's getting paid over $3,000 a month in some kind of contract. So hopefully a lot of the residents are very interested. I heard from a lot of seniors on where and what and how, and appreciate the work into that, and why is it $240,000 as the estimate. And look forward to hearing where that money is and where to go and who is this person. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have Karaman Mamand. Okay. Eva Scofis. And the Millers have left, so that's all we have for public comment. Thank you very much. At this point, do we have any appointments for any boards or commissions?
Yes, I'd like to nominate again Charlie Tellerico to the Planning Commission. This is the 9th week. I've sent you all his contact information. So if any of you had any questions or comments or concerns, you could easily contact him.
Second.
Okay, we have a nomination and a first and second. Roll call.
Ms. Christensen?
Yes.
Mr. Gingona?
Yes.
Mr. Buenaventura?
No.
Mr. Sylvester?
No.
Ms. Manalo?
No. Thank you very much. Now moving on to council committee reports. We have the Water Issues Committee meeting. So I just wanted to let everyone know that there's been an analysis done by staff and also a consultant that we've hired to look at the increase of rates. But at this point, I've raised questions about the data, and they provided conclusions. There was a meeting after our initial meeting. Unfortunately, a committee member was absent, and so we are now scheduling another meeting in July. So that's the update for that. We'll have further information. Moving on to City Council. Are there any City Council reports at this time? Okay, so.
I just have a quick comment. I'm still very disappointed with you three. A good person, and you won't even take a single step forward to have a conversation with him. I find it disgraceful.
Okay. Any other City Council reports? So I do. First and foremost, as mentioned at the last meeting, we'll be conducting a more extensive search for a city manager. My colleagues and I believe that this should not be done in haste. We will be scheduling a special public meeting for a temporary acting city manager appointment. So we have an acting city manager, and there is no gap of executive leadership. Also, I'd like to ask city staff to open up our survey again to garner more feedback from our public, from our employees. On June 14th, Supervisor David Canepa had the first Philippine flag raising in San Mateo County, in attendance with my colleagues, Vice Mayor Ray Vidaventura, and also Councilmember Glenn Sylvester. It was the very first, and hopefully we have more, and it was represented in San Mateo County. On June 15th, I was able to share some time with Our Lady of Perpetual Help and OLPH Church right atop of the hill. And on June 16th, our Rotary Club here in Daly City, Colma, had an event that I attended. On Tuesday, June 19th, I was at the California State Capitol as a witness to testify with student leaders in Daly City for SB 221 to ban firearms and ammunition sales at Cal Palace at the Assembly Committee, which passed. The City Council unanimously passed a resolution on June 11th to support this legislation. And on June 20th, Seton Hospital, with the Health Plan of San Mateo, opened the 9th floor skilled nursing unit at Seton Medical Center. On June 24th, Supervisor David Canepa and other San Mateo County residents, and I saw our Planning Commissioner Chair Pamela DiGiovanni, who joined us at the Pride Parade, which was just yesterday. And then later in the evening, I was able to join the little ones with the Daly City Pirates Little League team to give them words of encouragement that teamwork is essential and their hard work will pay off. They haven't won a championship, but I know that, their hard work will eventually pay off, and wanted to pay them a visit. And that is what I have for the reports. And at this moment, are there any reports from staff?
This being my last meeting, I have no reports other than to say what an honor and a privilege it has been to serve as city manager. I want to thank the council that hired me and each council that I have served since then for the great honor of serving Daly City. As I said when I left the first time to work in San Francisco, having served as assistant city manager, I left my heart in Daly City, and I got it back when I returned as city manager in 2005. I will leave my heart always here in Daly City now that I will be gone permanently, at least from an employment standpoint. I'm sure that all of you will continue to see me visit a lot of locations that have become very familiar to me in Daly City, and I will continue to support local businesses here as I always have. But it has been the high point of my career to serve as city manager in Daly City, and I will leave here with only the best of memories for all of the 18 years that I've served, and thankful for the support that I've gotten from the community, from the staff, and from the council. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And now let's adjourn tonight's council meeting in the memory of the following. Ray Terhidden, retired Daly City Police Officer. Also, Veronica Gomez, DCPD Officer Brandon Gill's grandmother. And also David Rosa, firefighter of Long Beach. Thank you very much.